New coins have arrived from Palmyra, and the boy is called Augustus, and his mother, Augusta. Then she has declared war. If Rome sees these coins, there will be war.
Then let Rome learn what Palmyra has become. If Rome comes for us, remember who you are. Not their prisoner, but the son of Palmyra.
In the year 271 AD, two rulers stood on opposite sides of the ancient world. One was Aurelian, the soldier emperor determined to restore Rome. The other was Zenobia, queen of a desert kingdom that had grown rich enough to rival the empire itself. Within a year, their conflict would decide the fate of the Roman East. Zenobia, a woman in the Syrian desert, made a decision that shocked the ancient world. She ordered new coins to be minted. On one side was her young son, on the other was herself, and beside their names appeared titles that only Roman emperors were allowed to use. Her son was now Augustus. She was Augusta. To Rome, this was more than rebellion. It was an insult, a direct challenge to the most powerful empire on earth. Her name was Queen Zenobia of Palmyra, a ruler so ambitious that she conquered Egypt, controlled vast trade routes across the east, and built an empire that stretched from modern-day Turkey to the borders of Arabia. For a brief moment in history, she stood between Rome and collapse. Then she tried to replace Rome itself. This is the story of the queen who dared to become an empress. To understand Zenobia, we must first understand Palmyra. At first glance, it should never have become powerful. Palmyra sat in the middle of the Syrian desert, surrounded by harsh terrain and hundreds of miles from the sea. Yet this isolated oasis became one of the wealthiest cities in the ancient world. The reason was trade. For centuries, caravans carrying silk from China, spices from India, precious stones from Persia, and luxury goods from the east crossed the desert. Palmyra stood directly in their path. Merchants stopped there to rest, resupply, and pay taxes. Every caravan meant more wealth. Every trader brought new connections. Over time, Palmyra became the bridge between east and west. Roman goods flowed east, eastern riches flowed west, and Palmyra profited from both. The city grew rich enough to build magnificent temples, towering colonnades, and grand public buildings that rivaled those of Rome itself. Officially, Palmyra was loyal to Rome, but beneath that loyalty was something more dangerous. Power! A great deal of power, and power creates ambition. By the 3rd century, Rome was in crisis. Emperors rose and fell with alarming speed. Civil wars erupted. Foreign invasions threatened the frontiers. The empire was struggling to survive. In the east, Rome relied heavily on one man, Odenathus, ruler of Palmyra. When the Persian Empire launched devastating attacks against Roman territory, Odenathus stepped forward. He defeated Persian forces and protected Rome's eastern frontier. The Romans praised him, they rewarded him, and gradually, Palmyra gained greater independence. To Rome, Palmyra appeared to be a loyal ally.
Strike now before their reinforcements arrive. Yes, General.
But every military victory expanded Palmyra's influence. Every success increased its wealth. Every year, the city became less dependent on Rome. And then everything changed. In 267 AD, Odenathus was assassinated. The man holding the East together was suddenly gone. A power vacuum emerged, and into that vacuum stepped his wife, Zenobia. Most Roman leaders expected Zenobia to serve as a caretaker for her young son. Instead, she took command. Zenobia became regent for her son Vaballathus, but she quickly proved she was much more than a temporary ruler. Ancient writers described her as intelligent, ambitious, and exceptionally educated. She spoke multiple languages. She studied history. She understood politics. Most importantly, she understood opportunity. Rome was distracted by internal chaos. Its armies were stretched thin. Its attention was focused elsewhere. For a ruler with courage and ambition, this was the perfect moment to act. Zenobia began strengthening Palmyra's military, expanding diplomatic ties, consolidating power, and surrounding herself with some of the greatest intellectual minds of her era. Among them was the philosopher Longinus. His presence at her court sent a message. Palmyra was not merely wealthy, it was becoming a center of culture, learning, and civilization. A rival to Rome in prestige as well as power. Then came Zenobia's boldest move, Egypt. No province mattered more to Rome. Egypt supplied enormous quantities of grain that fed the empire. Without Egyptian grain, shortages could spread rapidly. Control Egypt and you gained leverage over Rome itself. Around 269 AD, Palmyran forces invaded. The campaign moved quickly. Before Rome could react effectively, Egypt was under Zenobia's control. It was a masterstroke. She had not merely captured territory. She had seized one of the empire's most valuable assets. Soon, much of the Levant followed. Palmyran influence expanded across Syria, Egypt, Arabia, and parts of Asia Minor. An empire was emerging, and for the first time, it rivaled Rome's authority in the east. Zenobia still claimed loyalty, officially, but actions spoke louder than words. The illusion was fading. The Queen of Palmyra was beginning to look like an emperor. Then came the moment that changed everything. New coins appeared. New titles were announced. Zenobia and her son no longer behaved like regional rulers. They presented themselves as imperial figures. Augustus, Augusta. These were not ordinary titles. They represented supreme authority within the Roman world. The message was unmistakable. Palmyra was no longer asking for autonomy. It was claiming equality, perhaps even superiority. For Rome, this crossed a line. There could not be two emperors. There could not be two empires. Conflict had become inevitable. At that same moment, a new ruler was emerging in Rome, Emperor Aurelian. Unlike Zenobia's polished court, Aurelian was a soldier. Hard, practical, relentless. His mission was simple. Restore the empire, crush every rival, reunite Roman territory. History would remember him as restorer of the world, and standing directly in his path was Zenobia. Aurelian marched east. One city after another returned to Roman control. Palmyra's armies fought fiercely, but Rome's military machine was regaining its strength. The decisive confrontations came in Syria. Aurelian's victories forced Zenobia to retreat toward Palmyra. The walls of the desert city that had grown rich from trade now faced the full power of Rome. As Roman forces closed in, Zenobia attempted a desperate escape. According to ancient accounts, she headed east toward Persia, hoping to gain support. She never made it. Roman cavalry intercepted her before she could cross the frontier. The queen who had challenged an empire was captured. Soon after, Palmyra surrendered. Its brief empire collapsed. The dream of a rival Eastern superpower was over. Yet Zenobia's story did not disappear. For centuries, historians, writers, and rulers remembered the woman who came closer than almost anyone to carving a new empire from Rome's fractured world. She began as the ruler of a desert oasis. She ended as one of Rome's most formidable enemies. And even in defeat, Zenobia achieved something extraordinary. She forced the greatest empire on earth to recognize her as an equal, if only for a moment.